Alright folks, so this video is a little bit late, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the results of the latest election in Canada. And if you guys have been following me for a while, obviously I left the country for 6 months. I couldn't make it to the latest election. I was absolutely shocked by the results. Well, once again, I guess Justin Trudeau, yes, I obviously saw that on the news. So Trudeau resigned in January of 2025. Then Mark Carney took over. I think to me that was kind of expected. Trudeau knows that his time is 100% up. But still, right? All the damages that the Liberal Party has done to Canada in the almost the past 10 years now. Let's face it, Canada has been 100% destroyed. And the fact that the Liberals still won, it's absolutely mind-blowing. And especially as I'm looking at the results in the National Capital Region in Ottawa. So the Liberals completely swept the National Capital Region. Yeah, I'm absolutely shocked that, the Conservatives didn't stand a chance here in the capital. Let's just have a quick look at the results, right? So I know Trudeau has won 3 elections in a row. So this time, actually, the results were much better than anybody could have anticipated, certainly for the Liberals. They got 170 seats, so you need 172 for the majority. So the Liberals almost got a majority. The Conservatives, they got 143. I was expecting the results to be reversed, and obviously you have the Bloc Québécois, then the NDP. Yeah, well, here's the thing, right? Obviously the reason why the NDP, the New Democratic Party, has tanked completely is because Jagmeet Singh. And I'm just being 100% honest with you guys, right? Most Canadians, they don't want to see a sick prime minister. They don't want to see a brown guy in a turban that's wearing sandals and flip-flops, right? I'm just saying that's how it is, right? Here's the thing, right? So the Liberals, so if you look at the popular vote, right? They got 8.6 million to 8.1 million. They even won the popular vote by almost 500,000 votes, right? Something Justin Trudeau wasn't able to do for the past 2 elections. And I'm sorry to say to all the white people in Canada, so as of now in 2025, Canada is still a white majority country. Although at this point, given another 10, 15, 20 years maximum, that's not going to be the case anymore, right? It's the Liberal Party of Canada who has decided to completely flood Canada with all the immigrants and refugees. I would say probably the voter base in Canada as of 2025, I would say 80% of the eligible voters are still white people. You asked for this. I'm sorry to say, you can't blame it on Chinese people or the Indians or the Mexicans or the Latinos or black people or the Muslims or the indigenous people of Canada, right? You're the majority, right? So a lot of the immigrants that's currently Canada, right? Especially, if they only applied for permanent residency, if you only have a PR card, you can't vote in Canada. Probably at least 80% of the eligible voter space are still white Canadians. So I'm absolutely shocked. What the hell are you guys doing, right? I'm sure at this point it's pretty obvious now, right? The Liberals have been in power for almost 10 years now. They're the party that absolutely hates white people. To all the straight white males who voted for the Liberals. What the hell is with that? Do you have a crush on Melanie Jolie or something? Let me tell you guys something. She's a 100% bitch. Just like our previous finance minister and Justin Trudeau's sidekick, Chrystia Freeland. She's the equivalent of, Joe Biden's Kamala Harris or Trump's J.D. Vance. And yeah, I guess, I've been away for a while, but here's the thing, right? I understand. I did mention, right, if I was able to vote in the past U.S. election 2024, I would have voted for Trump and J.D. Vance. In fact, I actually supported their campaign. I went to one of J.D. Vance's event with Tucker Carlson. I drove all the way down to Hershey, Pennsylvania. Although it's been, over 4 months since Trump came into power. If you guys want me to give an honest rating on Trump's presidency so far, I would probably give it a C-. Yes, he's kept up some promises, but I did mention before. So the number one reason I would actually support Trump and the Republican Party is that Trump promised world peace. And I think at this point, it should be pretty obvious. Everybody wants the war between Russia and Ukraine to end, right? The initial invasion that took place, in Crimea in 2014, that was during the Obama and the Biden administration, right? Nothing happened during Trump's first term. So at least I thought, Putin would actually respect Trump. And as soon as Trump takes office, all it was going to take was one phone call from Trump to Putin, and possibly they would meet in person, and this war was going to end. But this war is not ending, and it's looking like a disaster. And this is a massive concern because, if the Trump administration, they cannot end this war, and honestly, nobody can end this war. And also, we can take a look at an example, let's say in a European country, right? Germany. I believe Germany is quickly becoming like the Muslim capital of Europe, right? I don't know if that's actually correct. So the last time I tried to look up the statistics, so I'm reading that the Muslim population in Germany is something like 15 million now. That sounds extremely high. I was expecting maybe 5 million or something. Is it really that high? But still, right? So a lot of those Muslims, especially if they just arrived in Germany as migrants or refugees, right? Illegal aliens, whatever you want to call them, they're not eligible voters. So whose idea was it to take in millions of Muslims into various European countries, especially Germany, right? It was Angela Merkel's idea, right? And who was it that kept Angela Merkel in power for so many years, right? She can keep on winning elections after elections after elections, right? It's the German people. Probably, I would say, 85 or 90% of the eligible voters, once again, I'm talking about the eligible voters who can actually vote, right, in Germany. They're all native ethnic white Germans. You guys are the ones who voted for her, right? She already revealed her plan to you guys, right? This is not some kind of a classified plan that's being hidden out of plain sight. Everybody knows this, right? Angela Merkel, she said this, I believe back in 2014, right? She said that Germany was going to take in 1 million Muslims a year. But yeah, you guys still voted for her, right? It's white people. You guys are doing this to yourselves, right? You guys know the Liberal Party of Canada absolutely hates white people. They want to bring as many immigrants as possible. They want to take in all the refugees. They want to completely obliterate Canada's international students program. They want to bring all of these temporary foreign workers. And yes, it wasn't until September of 2024, Canada had a program for all of these tourists to come into Canada illegally. So basically, let's say someone who was a tourist from China or Vietnam or Philippines, they can sign up for a 2-week vacation to Toronto or Ottawa or Vancouver or Montreal. They can overstay their tourist visa and then they just start working and then nothing would ever happen to them. I don't believe any of those illegal tourists ever actually got deported. This is what the Liberal Party of Canada has done to you guys. But I'm sorry to say, I would say at least 80% of the voter base in Canada are still white. But hey, you guys voted for this, right? And Mark Carney, he also won the popular vote this time and he almost got a majority victory. So yeah, stop blaming on the immigrants, right? If I was actually back in Canada in time to vote in the latest election, I would have voted for Monsieur Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party of Canada. So yeah, don't blame this on us anymore. Don't blame the immigrants. Don't blame the refugees. You guys are the ones who asked for this. Well, some of the the white supporters of the Liberal Party, they might be saying that Canada's birth rate is extremely low, and if we don't take in immigrants, there's going to be a massive problem. Yes, I agree, but I think this needs to be the new plan moving forward. If the Conservative Party of Canada actually won the election back in April, Canada would be going through a drastic change on its immigration policies. So I think this is what Canada needs. So Canada needs this: net zero migration. Okay? So net zero migration. What do I mean by that? First of all, right? You can't just be taking a bunch of these old folks. It doesn't matter where they're from. I don't care if it's a 70-year-old grandpa that's from Norway. I'm talking about, like really, really white people, right? I'm talking about like JBWW. I'm talking about just be white. I'm talking about, someone like Joseph Goebbels or Heinrich Himmler will put this guy on a Nazi propaganda poster white. Here's the thing, right? So let's say, if it's a 70-year-old grandpa from Norway and he's already collecting pension, from the Norwegian government. And if you guys know the rules, right? In order for you to collect old age security in Canada to become a Canadian citizen, right? So the minimum requirement is that you need to have lived in Canada for a minimum of 10 years. Let's say if Canada takes in this Norwegian grandpa, right? He's 70 years old. He's already collecting pension, right? He's doing just fine. And he lives in Canada for 10 years. By the time he turns 80, he'll be able to collect the old age security from the Canadian government. And where's that money coming from? He has never ever worked in Canada. He has never ever paid a penny in taxes. That's coming from Canadian taxpayers. People like you, people like me. You guys can see this is a massive problem, right? So it doesn't matter which part of the world you come from, right? And so it doesn't matter if it's, in India or Pakistan or Bangladesh or China or Korea or Congo or Nigeria. Stop taking these senior citizens. They're 100% useless, right? And if you're taking a bunch of old people, it's going to collapse the healthcare system. So yeah, these people are not going to contribute anything to Canada's economy, to Canada's GDP. These people are only going to make things worse for the people that's already living here. So what do I mean by net zero migration? You need to look at the age demographic. Basically, Canada needs workers, right? Especially skilled workers. So yeah, you're looking at this demographic, 20 to 60-year-olds, right? If you actually want to save Canada, if you want to actually fix the broken immigration system, right? So stop taking old people, right? So let's say Canada's birth rate, I believe in 2025 is something like this. 1.26 children per woman. Yeah, it's only about 55 to 60% of a replacement level. It's very low, right? So obviously, I understand that there's less and less eligible workers that's coming into the workforce, and there's more people retiring. So every single year, right, if you guys go to the website, Statistics Canada, you can find a very, very detailed breakdown of Canada's, population census, the projections, right, different ethnic backgrounds, right, population size of various cities, right, what is the average income, right, what you can look up Canada's monetary policy report, right, and these numbers are constantly being updated regularly, usually once every quarter, once every 3 months. And if you look at Canada's latest population projection, Canada's current population is at 41.6 million. The government of Canada can easily look at this number and say that, so let's say if Canada's current population is 41.6 million, let's say maybe 20 million are currently in this age group between 20 to 60, right? They're in the working age population. And let's say that's, this is May 2025, right? And let's say by May of 2026, this number decreased from 20 million to 19.9 million, right? It decreased by 100,000 because of aging population, low birth rate. Then Canada's immigration target for 2026 is very simple, right? 20 million, 19.9 million. Take in 100,000 immigrants. It's that simple. That's what I mean by net zero migration, right? So this is how you can stabilize the job market as well, right? You can't just be taking in, 500,000, a million, 1.5 million immigrants in per year, right? Look at what's happening to the housing market in Canada. Look at what's happening to the job market in Canada. Yeah, you're wondering why rent is so expensive. You're wondering why nobody can afford to buy a home. You're wondering why nobody can afford to find a good paying job, right? Because it's been 100% destroyed by a population explosion. So this is exactly what Canada needs. So Pierre Poilievre, he has moved to Alberta, right? If he actually really, really wants to save Canada, this is what Canada needs to aim for. And all of the 100,000 immigrants, let's say, if the working age population decreases by this much per year, right? All 100,000, you can't be taking these people from Uttar Pradesh, India, right? With zero skill, with zero education. A lot of these people, they can't even speak English. After they come to Canada, they just end up working at 7-Eleven or Tim Hortons or Wendy's or McDonald's, right? That's not doing anything to contribute to the economy, right? They have to bring something to Canada, right? They have to have some kind of skill. Can you work as a plumber? Can you work as an electrician in Canada? Can you become a tech guy? Can you become a university professor? They have to bring something in order to be eligible to immigrate to Canada, right? You can't just let anybody in. And honestly, there's so much more to cover, but this is the first step towards actually saving Canada, right? You need net zero migration, right? Stop bringing refugees, stop bringing old people. Only skilled young workers should be eligible to come to Canada. And only if Canada's working age population is actually decreasing. Let's say, if in 2026, right, Canada's workforce between 20 to 60-year-olds is still 20 million, then for 2026, Canada should not be taking any immigrants. And there's so much more I want to cover, but I'm just giving you guys a little bit of a preview. I did mention, right, my plan is to leave Canada. And trust me, I'm doing everything I can. I'm currently working 7 days a week. I'm working anywhere between 60 to 70 hours a week, constantly nonstop, constantly grinding away. And my debt is going down. I will give you guys another update next spring on my financial situation. So I'm hoping, once I have saved up a little bit of cash, I'll probably go back to sleeping in my car. And the reason why I'm doing that is that I actually want to take a drive across Canada because I want to do a cross-country tour. But obviously, I can't do that if I'm going to be staying in hotels every single night. So, I will be saving a lot of money if I just, stay in the car for 4, 5, or 6 months throughout the entire summer. Because, I've lived in Canada for over 18 years, but I've only been to 2 provinces, Ontario and Quebec, right? I've never even been to Northern Ontario. Ontario. So I want to actually talk to some Canadians, right? People who are struggling, especially young people, right? College students, university students, people who are 100% lost, people who are struggling to find their purpose in life, young people who are realizing at this point they'll never be able to live the lives of their parents, right? Their parents, by the time they're 25, they got to own 2 homes, they got to own 2 cars, they have a summer cottage home, they can afford to go on vacation abroad 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year, all while being 100% debt-free. But unfortunately, right, over 90% of young people in Canada are struggling. So I want to take a long road trip to Northern Ontario, to Manitoba, Saskatchewan, especially Alberta. I'll be sitting down and talking to many Canadian folks along the way, and my trip will take me all the way to BC, to Vancouver, possibly Victoria. So yeah, that's going to be my mission before I leave Canada, right? Because I understand, everything I've been talking about, all the topics I've been covering in my video, that's just from me, right? That's just one person, that's my perspective. So in order for me to grow this channel, in order for me to improve my contents, I have to keep pushing forward. And in order for me to do that, I need to be able to travel across Canada in order to meet and discuss these topics with other young Canadians who are struggling. So that's something I'm aiming for summer of 2026. So before I can afford to do that, I will be working 7 days a week, 60 to 70 hours a week, probably for the next 11, 12 months. I'm really disappointed in the results of this election. I think the people who voted for the Liberal Party of Canada, most of them are going to regret it within the next 6 months. Hey, once again, right, especially if you're a white Canadian watching this, hey, don't blame it on the immigrants, don't blame it on the refugees, right? This is what you guys asked for, so this is what you get. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys on Wednesday.